Hello, everyone, and welcome back to DLC, the show where we explore games that get our hearts racing and test our teamwork under pressure. I am Joey Fitz, and today I'm talking about Species Unknown, a sci fi horror game that's all about surviving said unknown. Before we get into the episode, I would like to thank our friends over at Game.Press and WannaDev Studio for the free review copy of the game. I had an absolute blast playing this one. Now, unlike my previous DLC of Deathground, I didn't go into this one alone. I played along with co-host Alex, and honestly, it made all the difference. What could have been a really tense solo horror game turned into one of the most fun, terrifying, and chaotic co-op experiences I've experienced in a very, very long time. The game is available now on Steam in early access for what might be the bargain of the century at just below £8 or $10. But let's break down Species Unknown, how it plays, and why it works so well, especially when you've got a friend watching your back. So, here's the setup. You are a contractor sent on dangerous missions aboard derelict spaceships where something has gone horribly wrong. Every mission has a different goal. Maybe you'll recover a specimen, retrieve some data, eliminate a creature, but it always boils down to the same thing. Get in, survive, and get out alive. Now the catch? You're not alone in the ship. And when you enter the ship, you never know what it is that's in there with you, and that uncertainty is where the game gets its name. Species Unknown throws a variety of creatures at you. Each will have its own behaviour, weaknesses, and terrifying presence. The concept works immaculately, and the setting feels like a mix of Dead Space and Phasmophobia. Claustrophobic corridors, eerie silence, and that creeping fear that you're being watched. But where it really clicks is when you're not playing it solo. Having Alex with me made it feel like a survival horror buddy movie. Tense, genuinely hilarious, and hugely unpredictable. So the gameplay and the mechanics of the game. The gameplay loop is mission based. You and your teammate land on a ship, pick an objective, navigate through pitch black hallways in order to complete it. You gather resources, manage your gear, and keep track of the environment, but the real key is communicating with your teammate. Alex and I found ourselves constantly saying, "Did you hear that? Is that corridor clear? Where have you gone? Is the monster with you?" etc. But the game's sound design makes every little noise feel like a massive threat, and when the creature does show up, you can't just shoot your way out of it, you have to think your way out. Each monster has its own detection style. Alex and I came up against two monsters in our playthrough. One that couldn't attack you unless you looked at it. Sounds easy, right? But when the monster pulls your vision towards the character, it's much harder than it sounds. The second one would only attack you if you were on your own. So Alex and I had to stick together, which is easier than it sounds because there's puzzles where you need to separate in order to progress to the next room. It was innovative, it was funny, and it was genuinely fun. In solo play, I imagine that would be extremely stressful. But with a friend, it becomes this tense line between strategy and panic, and when you survive it feels absolutely incredible. So the atmosphere of Species Unknown is brilliant. The lighting is great, it gave me a real Alien Isolation feel. The ships are dimly lit, the flickering lights and deep shadows in each hallway make it feel like it could be your last. The sound design is great, the metal groans, the alarms hum. There's not much in the way of music, just ambient tones and the steady hum of machinery, which makes the silence feel oppressive. And I can't overstate just how effective that is when the silence breaks and the creature reveals itself. Visually, it's got a really strong mix of clean sci-fi design and grimy industrial horror. It's early access, so not everything can be polished, but the mood for this one is spot on. There were moments when Alex and I stopped just to listen and look around, because we wanted to, not just because we were too scared to move. So, here's what I think. Species Unknown really shines, but there are just a few places where it feels like it's finding its footing. What stood out to me right away was the tension. the game doesn't rely on jump scares. It earns every ounce of fear through pacing and sound, and the creature designs are absolutely brilliant. Each monster changes the way you play. What I didn't mention is when you board the ship, you don't know what monster's with you. And the way that you find out is you study the bodies that you come across between entering the ship and turning the power back on. Each monster will kill its victims in a different way, and you have to use the binder that comes when you turn the power on to determine what alien you're dealing with. Then the next thing I want to talk about is there's a team dynamic. Playing with Alex felt genuinely cinematic at times. It was the kind of horror where you're both laughing but you are panicking at the same time. We'd have these moments where things just went sideways, where alarms were blaring, doors were jammed, one of us was shouting directions at the other, and still I would get blown up by the engine deciding it's time to fire at that exact point. But when we finally escaped, it felt like we'd survived the movie scene. Now, all of that being said, it's not perfect. The game is in early access. There are a few bugs here and there, a few clipping issues, sometimes that alien AI has behaved a little bit weird, but it's nothing groundbreaking. Just enough to remind you that the game is still a work in progress. So, while I loved our runs, the one really big piece of feedback is I could do with a little bit more map variety. After a few sessions, you start to notice that the ship's layout is the same every time. The way they switch it up is different doors are locked, different routes needed to be taken to the objective. But I realise that's the thing with it being in early access, and I'm sure going forward the roadmap will include different areas for you to explore and get killed by the monster. Still, none of this takes away from how effective this experience is, and the foundation of Species Unknown is rock solid. I can't wait to see when it gets that little bit more polish and hits its full potential. So my final thoughts on Species Unknown are it is an exceptional co-op horror experience. Playing it with Alex made what could have been a pretty stressful, lonely game into something really unforgettable. A mix of fear, laughter and pure adrenaline. So much so that I went and bought Tim a copy of the game when it released so that all three of us can play it. You might see that on stream sometime soon. If you enjoy games like Phasmophobia or Lethal Company, and you want something a little bit darker, more grounded, and much more cinematic, Species Unknown is well worth checking out. It's got a little bit of early access roughness, but underneath it is a fantastic horror experience that's only gonna get better. Like I said, the game is in early access for what feels like a steal at just £7.50 at the moment, or about $10. Just remember to bring your friend, because it's much better when you can hear them scream too. So that wraps up my review of Species Unknown. I just want to thank Alex for helping me out with those missions, as well as thanking our friends over at Game.Press and Wanna Dev Studio again for the free review copy. If you haven't played it or haven't seen it, I'd really urge you to check this one out. If you have played it, I'd love to know your stories. What went wrong, who panicked first, and who didn't make it back to the ship. Thank you for listening to DLC. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a like, rate us on Spotify, and share it with your crew. I'll be back soon with another DLC, but until then, stay quiet, stay close, and if you hear something in the vents, run. I've been Joey. Have a great day.